Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is pouring themselves a drink. Maybe it's you. A glass of wine after work, a beer with friends, a shot to celebrate something. It feels like a modern habit, something humans invented to relax, to socialize, to unwind. But here's the strange part. Your desire for alcohol didn't start with humans at all. It started millions of years before we existed, in the branches of a tree, with an animal that wasn't even close to being human. To understand why, we have to go back roughly 10 million years, long before Homo sapiens, long before fire, long before anything we'd recognize as human. Picture a forest floor somewhere in Africa. Fruit falls from the trees. Some of it gets eaten right away, but some of it sits there, bruised, split open, forgotten. And when fruit sits on the ground for a few days, something happens to it. The natural sugars inside start to break down. Wild yeast floating in the air lands on the fruit and starts feeding on those sugars. That process is fermentation. And one of the byproducts of fermentation is a small amount of ethanol, the same chemical compound that's in the drink you might be holding right now. In 2014, a biologist at UC Berkeley named Robert Dudley published a book called The Drunken Monkey. His theory, now taken seriously across evolutionary biology, was this: our primate ancestors weren't avoiding that fermented fruit. They were eating it, a lot of it. And the small buzz of ethanol wasn't a side effect they tolerated, it was a signal. A strong, sweet smell of alcohol in the jungle meant one thing: ripe, sugar-rich, calorie-dense fruit nearby. In a world where finding enough food was a matter of survival, an animal that could smell fermentation from a distance had a real advantage. So evolution didn't just allow our ancestors to handle alcohol, it rewarded the ones who were drawn to it. Over millions of years, that preference got wired into the primate brain itself. Scientists have found that humans, along with our closest primate relatives, share a specific genetic mutation, one that appeared roughly 10 million years ago, which made an enzyme called ADH4 far more efficient at breaking down ethanol. Before that mutation, our ancestors could barely process alcohol at all. After it, they could metabolize it up to 40 times faster. That single genetic change lines up almost exactly with the moment our ancestors came down from the trees and started spending more time on the forest floor, exactly where fermenting fruit would be waiting for them. So by the time anything resembling a human walked the earth, the craving wasn't something we picked up. It was already sitting in our biology, inherited from ancestors who never touched a bottle, never brewed a drop, and never even stood upright. Which brings us to the actual humans. If the taste for alcohol was already built in, the only question left was, when did we figure out how to make it on purpose, instead of just waiting for nature to do it for us? In 2018, archaeologists excavating a cave called Raqefet near Haifa in Israel found something that reshaped the timeline entirely. Inside the cave, they discovered stone mortars carved directly into the bedrock, used by a group called the Natufians, roughly 13,000 years ago. When researchers analyzed the residue left inside those mortars, they found traces of wheat and barley that had been deliberately soaked, allowed to germinate, and left to ferment. In other words, beer, brewed on purpose in a cave 13,000 years ago. Here's what makes that discovery so strange. The Natufians were not farmers. Agriculture hadn't been invented yet. They were still hunting animals and gathering wild grain by hand. They didn't grow that barley. They found it growing wild and gathered it. And yet, out of everything they could have done with that grain, brewing it into alcohol was important enough that they figured out the process before they figured out how to farm. For a long time, archaeologists assumed it worked the other way around, that humans settled down, started farming grain for bread, and beer came later, almost as an accident. But the evidence from Raqefet suggests the opposite might be true for at least some groups. The desire to make alcohol may have been one of the reasons humans started deliberately managing wild grain in the first place, thousands of years before anyone thought to plant a seed on purpose. But this raises a bigger question. Why would getting drunk matter enough to shape the earliest stages of human civilization? Part of the answer is chemical. Alcohol triggers the release of dopamine and endorphins in the brain, the same reward pathways involved in eating, bonding, and pleasure. For a species that was starting to live in larger, more complex social groups, that mattered. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer societies have proposed what's sometimes called the beer before bread hypothesis, the idea that shared alcohol consumption helped strengthen social bonds, reduce tension between group members, and make large communal gatherings easier to manage. In small doses, alcohol lowers social inhibition. People relax, they open up, they cooperate more easily. For early humans trying to hold together larger and larger groups, that effect wasn't trivial. It may have been one of the tools that made large-scale cooperation possible in the first place. So, the craving that started as a way to find ripe fruit in a forest slowly turned into something else entirely. A social technology. A reason for people to gather, to trust each other a little more, to celebrate, to mourn, to mark the passage of time together. Which means that when you have a drink today, you're not doing something new. You're not even doing something uniquely human. You're repeating a behavior that started with a primate on a forest floor millions of years before anyone had a word for civilization. Your ability to enjoy that drink, to feel it loosen your shoulders after a long day, to make a room full of strangers feel a little more like friends. That's not a modern invention. That's a 10-million-year-old inheritance, quietly running in the background every time you raise a glass. The clock on your wall says this is the 21st century, but some part of your brain is still standing on that forest floor, following the same scent it always has.